Hi, and welcome to part two on the three-part presentation dealing with the revolution in Russia, the rise of the Soviet Union. These are notes 12.3b, and this is, of course, Mr. Marks. We keep using the term Soviet Union, so it'd probably be a good idea for you to know what a Soviet is. A Soviet is a council of workers and soldiers, kind of like a union. They're working together in order to better their working conditions and to better the overall country. These start as democratic groups, again, very much like unions, where you get to vote for measures which your Soviet is going to take. You work together in order to do this, but eventually they're going to be taken over by the Bolsheviks. Now, the Bolsheviks are a radical socialist group that will eventually just be called communists by most people outside of the Soviet Union. Personally, I just kind of like saying the word Bolshevik, because of the Bolshevik ideas and the Bolshevik things that are just going on in Russia at that time. They're going to be led by a man who names them, and their name is originally going to mean majority. Even though the Bolsheviks technically were in the minority at the time, it was just this idea that you were joining in with what everybody else just knew to be true. The use of names and naming things and using propaganda in order to get across ideas that aren't necessarily true is really going to be one of the hallmarks of the Soviet Union, and it's basically how it was formed. The man who named these Bolsheviks is Vladimir Lenin. He's a follower of a man named Karl Marx, who I'm going to talk about in just a little bit. Lenin is going to be imprisoned in Siberia for his speeches. Now, prison in Siberia, which is a tundra wasteland, a huge place that's literally the middle of nowhere, is going to be a kind of common theme as you talk about many of the different people that disagree with policies in Russia. Vladimir Lenin is going to be there, and it's while he's there, he's going to marry the daughter of a poor noble. Her name is Nadisha Krupskaya. After prison, the two of them, she's going to help reinforce a lot of his ideas. These two are going to go into exile in Switzerland, and from there, he's going to give speeches. He's going to start creating pamphlets and books and other sorts of things that are going to talk about how the Tsar needs to be overthrown. He's going to have to change Marx's ideas just a little bit. We'll talk about Karl Marx's ideas, like I said, in just a moment, and then how it is that Lenin's going to change them. But basically, Lenin is going to believe that a small group of people, and remember, he's going to name that small group Bolshevik, meaning majority, a small group of people will be able to lead the rest of the country down the correct path, and that eventually everybody will end up learning through the education system how to take care of everything on their own. The man he follows is a man named Karl Marx. Now, Karl Marx had published much earlier to all of these events. He was a political thinker and a writer. He founded what's currently known as communism. Okay, and this term comes about in an 1849 publication, which Karl Marx wrote with another man named Engels, called the Communist Manifesto. In the Communist Manifesto, he says that the world is divided up into different social classes, and that through the course of history, these classes have fought with each other and slowly maneuvered for more and more power. He says the whole point of the world is for a very small group of people, the people up at the top of that tower there, this small group of people, with the help, and these are the nobles, with the help of the church, okay, and that's that second layer there, and with soldiers, will be able to control everybody else that's underneath there. He believes that people are basically running their lives, that the order of the world is set up so that most of us are spending all of our lives toiling and struggling in the hopes of just helping a very small group of people to work really well. And he said over time, this system slowly changes. It started as a kind of feudal system where the king just basically gave favors to those people he liked, and the majority of people were peasants. And over time, as industrialization comes about, the workers get more and more money, and they're able to start businesses of their own. And as more of those workers start getting educated, they start realizing that if they can educate everybody, they'll be able to flip this whole thing on the head. Instead of just a few people having instead of a few people having the wealth, all of them will. He believes and he predicts, he believed, past tense, and he predicted that the industrial workers, once they received enough education to realize that they've been fooled all this time, and remember, he's going to believe that religion is part of the thing which is fooling everybody. Once they realize that, wait a second, there's more of us than there are of them, why is it that they should have so much and we should have so little? That they will rise up in arms against them. These industrial workers, if you remember, the term for them is proletariat. This proletariat will overthrow the bourgeoisie, which, if you remember, in France, the bourgeoisie, the middle class, was thrown in with the third estate. Karl Marx is going to say that they've now separated themselves and they are no longer keeping in line with the proletariat anymore, and they're looking for ways to control them themselves. He believes that the proletariat will first rebel against them, and then will start a tide of change that will overthrow everything. A few of the keys to this idea is that everybody must be educated, and that through that education they will be able to recognize the lies of the people who are above them on that earlier tower. Okay? Once this is achieved, they'll realize that the world doesn't have to be a place where only a few people have a lot, that there's enough wealth to go around so that it can be distributed in the case of people's needs, and that once people started working together as a united group and realized that up until this time capitalists and leaders had been constantly working against this idea because they wanted to keep everything for themselves, over a period of time they would create communism. Communism is a socialist idea. Socialism is where the belief is that the government should run some of the programs. Communism is a socialism to the extreme. In this case, the ownership of the means of production, the factories, the machines, everything that's used in order to create products. These means of production will be shared among all people instead of just under the control of certain business people. This will end all of the divisions of class and wealth. He believes that this will stop all kinds of conflict because everybody will have what they need and everyone will work together for this greater good in order to make for this society. Now, there are a lot of reasons why this can sound really good in theory, and you can see why this would get a lot of people excited about it. And a lot of reasons why, though it sounds good in theory, it doesn't work so well in practice. Because who decides who gets what? And that's going to be the key problem to this. The map which is there shows the different countries over time that have had communist governments. With the Soviet Union, or Russia being that really dark red one, you notice that the other really large space just below that is China, and then a bunch of other places where some form of communist government has been created. They might not be true communism. In fact, none of them are true communism according to Marx. He'll claim that Lenin was completely wrong in his idea here. They might not be true communists, but they're at least communist in name. And that's even the case with the Soviet Union. You see, Lenin, with his Bolshevik Revolution, was trying to turn a population that hadn't been educated yet. Marx would actually tell people that Russia would not be ready for communism for quite some time. Remember, the proletariat have to go through that education. They have to understand what's going on. Lenin believed that if just a small group of people revolted in the name of the proletariat, that eventually they would be able to bring that education to the proletariat after the revolution and turn things around for them. And we'll see that while Lenin's ideas might have made a lot of sense, again in theory, in practice they're just not going to boil out. One other person we have to mention that'll make it so Lenin's able to successfully pull off this revolution is a man named Leon Trotsky. Leon Trotsky is going to be the one to help engineer Lenin's return from exile. He's going to bring Lenin from Switzerland into Russia and there start these rallies that will lead to this later revolution. He had the military experience and just overall know-how necessary to make the revolution successful. He'll understand how to use troops and how to place them and how to train them. Eventually, though, Trotsky, despite the fact he's this really a hero of the revolution, will find himself at odds against communism's quickest rising star, a man named Joseph Stalin, who's important enough that we'll spend not just a couple of these presentations, but several of them just on that man and his policies. So quickly in review, who were the Bolsheviks? According to Marx, what group of people was oppressed by the middle class? And along those lines, what was supposed to happen to free them from that oppression? And what is communism?